Hi, this is my review of Demon Gate, The Tortured South. This is an expansion for the Demon Gate role-playing game. If you haven't seen my review of Demon Gate, I'm going to put the link in the description below. I recommend that you check that out. It's a really amazing dark fantasy apocalyptic game. Now, when it comes to The Tortured South, it expands the game in several ways. It expands the background information of the setting of the world of Koth. It expands the atlas, that is, you get all the maps and the description of the places. There are also new species and races that you can use to create characters. There are also monsters native to the Tortured South. They are more on the bestial side of things, or of a more material nature. That is, you won't find spirits and demons here. There is an upcoming source book, the Demon Hunter's Handbook, if I'm not mistaken, that is coming up in the near future. So you'll find those types of supernatural creatures there. But the Tortured South is more about that animalistic side of the Demon Gate role-playing game when it comes to enemies. You'll also find new classes here. So there's a lot in this expansion that will enhance the game world, the character creation options, the enemies that you will face. There's a lot here. Now let's talk about the quality of the PDF. The document is fully bookmarked. The graphic design is great. It feels like you're reading this forbidden tome of sorts, this grimoire. The illustrations have that combination of old school and new school type of images. The book contains a table of contents that is hyperlinked, so it's very easy to navigate the entire PDF. Everything is clearly written and explained. You understand the content when it comes to the places, the culture, the beings and people that you can find in this world. Everything when it comes to the character classes and the species and races. Everything is very clear, very easy to understand and to implement or to use in your games. Although I do think that adding a few more commas would add to the quality of the writing. And even though everything is well written and explained, I did spot a few typos. But they are not too much of a big deal when understanding the content of the PDF. But despite that, the quality in general is good. Now let's talk about the contents. Something that I have noticed in these Demon Gate books, that is in the core rule book, the adventure. I'm also going to put the link to my review of the adventure in the description. Please check it out if you're not a player. That is for game masters only. And with this expansion of the Tortured South, you can see how immersiveness is part of the design philosophy behind the Demon Gate books, because the book starts out with this dark fiction about this inhabitant of Koth that decided to join the Saran Navy in order to protect his wife and his son from an invasion. And these invaders are quite fearsome. I'm going to avoid spoilers of the different fiction encountered in this book, but suffice to say he gives a really good description here of what he is fighting. He said, "For it was not men we were fighting, but the tortured remains of their shells." So here you can see the bleakness, the darkness, and the apocalyptic theme of Demon Gate. Really nice introductory fiction. After that, you have an introduction to the expansion and to how to use it. And this content, the pages, describe the work and the writings of this non-player character in the Demon Gate setting, which is Marva the Scribe. So you're supposed to feel like you are reading something that was written in the game world. You will see some game-related information, for example, some brief stats or information concerning non-player characters that you can find in the different places and that you can use in your campaign. But for the most part, it feels like you are reading a gazetteer or some sort of document that actually exists in the game world. So that's really good. It adds to the immersion once again. Now let me talk a bit about the different places, the cities, the adventure sites that are found in this book, because there are a lot. I'm going to give you a brief description, some details, and to avoid spoiling things for players that are interested in getting this book, just to get a greater sense of the world of Koth, of the types of characters that then they can create. Because even though you have a lot of information concerning the type of adventures that you can have, it's just there as an adventure seed for the game master to fully develop. That is, even if you read this Tortured South book as a player, there are just so many ways in which the game master can still surprise you. You just get like some brief adventure seeds that will tell you a bit of this adventure side, these ruins, this area of the wilderness, and there's a lot of wilderness here. And I actually like the contrast that there are so many savage places, and there are some places that achieve a certain level of civilization, but as you may remember from the Tortured South, the adventure module, the Coast of Thrall, cities are also quite dangerous, sometimes even more so. So let's start. First, we have details on Amure. The Dark Ocean is the largest ocean in all of Koth. It is inhabited by endless creatures from its bottomless depths to its vast surface. Most of its pirates stay close to merchant routes near the coasts, for the great storms of the deep ocean are merciless and claim those who venture into its depths. So here you will find details about Akurin, the large city of Colonia, Aramor, the small city of Sera, and then you have information on how some adventures could feature the ancient remains of legendary beasts. The adventurers could find ancient and unknown scrolls. They could find strange crystals of power and magical artifacts. Now this is something that is a recurring element in the description of each of these places. It feels like there is so much to explore, and the places are so dangerous that even in a high-powered world of the Demon Gate, because as you may remember from the core rulebook, this is a game where you start out considerably weak and you become very strong, increasingly strong to reach epic proportions later on if you are lucky and skilled enough to reach the highest levels of power. So, but still, with this set information, you still feel like there is so much yet to explore, and I think this is vital for a successful world or campaign setting, because some campaign settings have all of these powerful non-player characters. They are just so insanely powerful, and they have already tackled so many ruins and forgotten cities and sites, and you feel like you're taking the leftovers of some other more powerful or famous adventurer and explorer. But the world of Koth is so lethal, bleak and dangerous that even the most powerful characters could think twice about venturing into this unknown and untamed wild lands. So here you also have information on the Aticraulian Empire. The Imperial Kingdom is primarily ruled by the Terrans. During their reign in the 9th era, in the Kin Wars, they were able to win many wars and take many lands as their own. They are a land of slavers, military states, powerful senators and guild masters. Appropriately enough, for the apocalyptic setting, this empire is known as the Jewel of Koth, and many consider it a paradise. In fact, the name of the imperial land of the Aticraulians means paradise in the ancient slave tongue. Now, I want to go a bit back to the section where it talks about Amure, just to point out the contrast between the different lands, because in Amure, in the Akurin, the large city of Colonia, this is a dark elf city that dwells on the Colonian Road on the mighty lake of Koi. And this city holds brilliant architecture of the towers and the crystals that surround it. They are an enjoyable and warm sight to behold at night. And in Aramor, this city greets the Iron Ocean and is a safe harbor for many of the trade vessels that come to the Grand Port from the savage waters and mongrel pirates. Aramor is known for its shipwrights. The port is filled with some of the finest ship makers, and the city sells to the highest bidders. Now, observe the contrast with those places compared to, for example, Banisher's Trail in the Aticraulian Empire. This is a dirt road that leads through the dark country of Icobor. These Terran lands are overrun by thieves and vagrants. You also have Bannerburn, which is a tormented city that was once called Kalnehet, and it was a thug city. But the thug, which are Dragonkin, lived in peace here. There were great cathedrals built to the worshipping of their dragon gods. They studied the ancient arts of draconic magic. And yet, in the years of the Thrall Wars, the city was sacked, stormed by the Vataji and the Black Army of Baal worshippers. Then we have information on the barren wastes. This is a cracked region where no plant life grows. Very little life exists here at all, and any life that does seem to exist exists under the sand. You also have the Black Crystal Fields. So this is a field of black and purple crystals. They are rumored to have grown after the shattering in the Age of Falling. When the Void Stone shattered the moon and the pieces fell to the lands, they created great devastation. We also have the Black Ridge Keep, which is a stronghold in Serra. To look upon the keep, it would seem that it is created with very poor engineering skills. The keep seems unbalanced and twisted upon the high cliffs, and it seems to wrap around these ledges and hang off of them in such a frightening way that one good strike from an artillery weapon would bring the entire castle down. But this is quite the opposite. It is supported unexpectedly well by very strong beams that run through the entire cliff and through the castle itself. It was designed by the master Abraham Yumani, an architect mage, well known for his amazing works using sorcery and artistry combined. You also have other places such as the Blade Chamber, the large city of Icobor. This city of pale-skinned humans is well known for its schools that study the art of sword fighting. The army of elite swordmasters and knights are known all across the south as the Wall of Blades. So if you take this and contrast it with the beginning section that was more of a coastal area, you can see so many different adventures and even backgrounds for your player characters. Maybe one of your characters comes from Blade Chamber, he was trained here. So there is a lot of variety. Many different tools for you to create a menagerie of adventures to suit any type of campaign. You also have places such as the Blood Moon Plateau. South of the Iron Desert, in the heartlands of Brom, lies the Blood Moon Plateau. It was given this name long ago, when the first Terrans to discover it were starving and dying in the Iron Desert. You also have the Blood Straits. Between the dead coast of Narcadia and the Serran borders rage the Blood Straits. There has been much war in recent years, and the Serran navy has given these waters this name. Then we have the Bog of the Taken. Many wars have been fought here in recent years. The Hand of the Justicarian is a united army of many countries that have joined forces in the quest against the prophecy of the Demon Gate. It is an army of criminals that have also been sentenced to death. You also have Braden, the small city of Colonia. On the Great Lake known as the Titus Vaw, this small dark elf city relies on open trade with Aticraulis from the cities of Titus and Vita. The city is quite peaceful here, and their studies in literature and poetry have been known to attract many bards from across the realm. You also have Brom. Ironhaven is the capital of Brom. It is ruled by the overlord Forge Ruth Thunderstorm. Other cities are ruled by what is called a Kroll in their tongue, which loosely translate into lord. There are also 9 tribes of Brom that are ruled by their own individual Kroll. They also roam the country wildlands, but they still pay homage to the overlord. We have information on the Burning Isles, which are claimed by the country of Zawan. This tropical island holds one of the largest volcanoes that have yet to be discovered on Goth. We also have the Buried Cracks. These hills and rocky lands are home to many raiders that stay near the roads. There are more than a few headhunters seeking payment for the outlaws that hide in the cracks. Deeper within the cracks are said to hide ogres and trolls. We also have Kalaka, moderate city in Aticraulian Empire. In Imperial lands, this city is home to human mortals. This city was founded primarily as a military stronghold, yet it grew over time. There are many attacks that come from the east by mongrel war parties and dark orcs. You also have details on the Crow Wilderness. It is a dangerous place of cannibals, and they do not like intruders into their land. Then we have details on Castle Gothu Remnant. In the Kai Elrin country of Colonia, south of the Tau Lake, is the Castle Gothu Remnant, an ancient dwarven castle that was once the largest stronghold in the southern lands, and the name roughly translates into the castle that moves through earth. Then we have the Citadel of 1,000 Thieves, the small city of Icobor. This place is ruled by a human thief by the name of Lord Asium Trough. He once ruled a thieves guild for the High King of Darkrest. So he ruled a criminal guild for the king and used that position to make moves and counter moves for his liege and the survival of his people as well as himself. And he became quite powerful and wealthy, starting this city from his own sly wit. Then we have information on the crossroads. Much superstition surrounds the crossroads of the Empire. There have been many executions here, carried out by the soldiers of the Emperor. It is a cold place, often rainy and gloomy. Then we have Crow Lake. The dark waters of the lake are famous for the story of the Crow Lake Leviathan that is said to have lived in the depths for centuries. At this time, only 5 or 6 sightings have been firmly reported, yet one story is thought to have been fabrication of the lone survivor who is called a madman by the residents of Kalaka. He was tried as a murderer and executed after the event. Then we have extensive information on the Crow Wilderness. Beneath the broad-leafed canopy of the Crow Wilderness, a race of mongrel dwell in high numbers. These goblins wear crow feathers and paint themselves in blood. We have details on Damon's Road. This ancient trail has gathered a name for being haunted by vile spirits of the Shadow Realm and even Hell. Yet in truth, it gives off a very perilous vibe. The scenery is often quite grim. The trees are fearsome to behold. The muddied road and grey skies that normally engulf these lands keep the area like this almost all year round. We also have information on Dagger Bay. The Bay of Icobor is filled with rough waters and sharks along with them. Dagger Bay is also known to be a famous place for pirates to hide within, and many do not miss a chance to attack any ships that sail across the entrance of the bay. Then we have information on the Dark Isle. Ships cannot dock anywhere on this isle. The entire land is guarded by 2,000-foot cliff walls, and in some areas they are even higher. Sailors tell tales of sighting dragons that circle the island, but everyone knows they died out long ago. Then we have Darkrest, large city of Icobor. The powerful city of Darkrest guards the southern lands of Icobor. The city is filled with many races and much adventure for those seeking to sell their swords. And then there's the Dead Coast. On the western shores of Narcadia, the Dead Coast represents the border of these blackened lands. This wretched place is said to be the final resting place of Matrodor's undead army, a blood mage bent on world domination. We also have Deadman's Marsh. Deadman's Marsh is wedged between the Imperial Forest and Damon's Road. From the swamplands come many stories of the dead coming back to life within this place. Some say they have seen family members walking out in the marsh that were buried long ago. Then we have Inos, moderate city of Colonia. This city is rapidly growing on the edge of the harbor Broken Axe, with dwarven trade coming in heavily from the mines of Stone Growl and trade ships from Icobor and other surrounding countries. There is a steady flow of coin. Then we have Farwater, large city of the Mage Realm. The famed city of Farwater is thought to be a myth by many due to the fact that the city is high up in the sky and perched on the cliffs of the floating isles. There are many isles within these skies. In this area, it is believed that this is due to some kind of magical accident, or perhaps created from an event during the Age of Falling. Then we have the fields of the Septimus Vitus. In Aticraulian, the words Septimus Vitus means the seventh life. These fields of wheat are a great place for the farmlands under imperial rule. They have been known to become a hiding place for escaped slaves though. Then we have the Fire Sands. Here the desert is extremely hot, yet beneath the sands there are ancient temples filled with active volcanoes. Many of the tribes of Menthep that travel these deserts have seen the fiery explosions into the skies. Then there are the floating isles. These islands of the Mage Realm are naturally unreal. They float high above the sea and are excellent navigational tools for those who dwell in Mage Realm. The inhabitants of this country are called Magi. Even those who are not casters are given this name. We also have information on the Gate of Icobor. This stone wall is 100 feet high and stretches over miles of grasslands. It marks the border of Icobor and has guarded it for centuries. We also have the Golden Bridge. It connects the city of Vita to the trade routes to the east in Colonia, over the Crow River. The bridge is very large, taking nearly an hour to walk across. We also have Gothu Canyons. These were claimed to have been made during the Age of Falling, when the moon fell to Goth and created a massive explosion, ripping the land up and hurling it all about. We also have the harbor Broken Axe. Named after Voldar Broken Axe, these waters are patrolled by the dwarves of Valhagan and the pirates of Icobor. At the edges of these warm waters stand many villages of common folk. Humans, mongrel, and dark elves inhabit this place. We also have Hellgate Gorge. So many have actually died here that it is said to look just like hell now. The cliffs are littered with the remains of bodies, hanging cages and hung men, women, and even children. Then there's Hell's Gate Mountain. These mountains operate as an impassable wall for the Narcadian forces. They give the country a defensive advantage over some of their enemies, forcing any troops attempting to invade with infantry to move up near Hellgate Gorge or through the Crow Wilderness. Neither of those options are promising. Then we have the Howling Hills. They obtained their name from travelers long ago who fell into the bowels of its depths. Passages, chambers, mazes, and catacombs lie within these places. Their tale led them to a pale dwarf city beneath the surface. This place is guarded by powerful trickery. Then we have Horatia, a small city in Aticraulian Empire. This city is near the Imperial Bay, yet it actually looks out over the Amur. There is an eastern gate as well as a southern gate that is open to trade from all across the empire. And of course, we have further detail on Icobor. The dark lands of Icobor are primarily human lands. The sky is often grey in this region and the weather somewhat dreary. It is a land of criminals, thieves, and assassins, a rogue's paradise. Many famous assassins and thieves spawned from these shady lands. We have information on the Imperial Bay, guarded by the imperial cities of Horatia and Twin Towns. These waters are overly secured by the might of the Aticraulian navy. Thousands of warships have made the bay an unsafe place for pirates and enemy vessels. We have the Imperial Forest. The Imperial Forest is riddled with mires, bogs, glades of thistle, shaded glens, and palmettos. There are so many different types of trees, even oaks, maples, the jagged califars, beautiful flowered ophelias, and broad-leaved mastrons. Then we have the Iron Desert. In the harsh lands of Brom, the Iron Desert often dons a dark brown or even grey, metallic veil over the land. The Minotaur tribes dwell here and roam the desert lands as hunters and gatherers. They trade with outsiders for food sometimes. We have the Iron Ocean. The salt waters of the Iron Ocean are home to many races and creatures within the steel depths, yet the Mer are said to be the most dominant beneath the surface. There are stories about castles under the ocean that only those who can breathe water will ever be able to see. We also have Iron Haven, the large city in Brom. This very large city is a magnificent sight to witness for those who are traveling across the Iron Desert. It was founded by survivors of that very same ordeal, wandering and starving in the wastes. Now it is home to diamond mines, quartz, and other minerals. Then we have the Isle of Illusion. This realm of wonder is consumed by great magic. Wizards from all over the realm travel here to study, learn, create, and sell their magical abilities. There is a story that the island changes reality every day. Then we have the Isle of the Shade Clan. The legend tells a sad tale of a large group of Mentep monks known as the Shadow Climbers. There are still stories about Shadow Climbers being some of the best Mentep warriors, almost like the ninja in Yan Wu. Yet the Shadow Climbers are long gone, and it is said that they still haunt this place. Then we have the Ivy Crags. The twisted and tangled crags get the name from the obvious title. These vines strangle nearly every rock and boulder in sight. They cover nearly every crevice of these hills and surround even all of the mortal-made structures. We also have information on Kael, small city of Colonia. This is an amazing place within the Colonian jungle. It has recently reached a population that is great enough to be considered a small city. There are two primary districts of the city called the Red Towers and the Shadow District. Then we have Kald, large city of Serra. Kald is ruled by Prince Ral Romada. He was placed here by his father who had kept him from the battlefield. So long he began to resent his father for it. Thus, the king finally placed him exactly where he wanted to be. Serran and Narcadian troops are always in conflict, especially in current years. There is a constant naval war going on in the Blood Straits. Then we have Kotus, the great and mysterious island. It is the homeland of the Grimalkin, also known as the Mentep. This island is a dangerous place filled with monk clans, bandits, barbarian tribes, exotic plant life, and deadly monsters. It is also said that many monks dwell in the mountains and forests, training in the ancient martial arts. We have information on the Lanacre Moors, the small city of Serra. This small city began as a resting place for travelers through the muck and mire of the Lanacre Moors. Now it takes the very name of the swamps. The city has been called Troll Town by many, for it does hold a mix of trolls as well as humans. We also have Mao Yu, the large city of Kotus, the grand capital of Kotus in fact. A population holding thousands of Menheb Kotushites ruled by the great pharaoh Asatep Meyek. The capital has become lax under rule of no weapons within the city. There are 3 pyramids here, one for the pharaoh, for his family and all his servants. The second is the temple of Kratalis, where the high priest of the god of creation and light dwells with all of his priests and priestesses. The third pyramid is for the warlord and his generals, those who lead the military forces. We have information on Murstone, medium city of Brom. At the southern tip of Brom, looking out over the Amure, is the medium-sized city of Murstone. The city has a much easier climate than the capital of the Broman lands. There are forests here, scattered trees outside the walls, and green farmlands. We also have Mistfall, the small city of Kotus. The jungle city of Mistfall is home to plateau pyramids, waterfalls, and domed huts. The hunting cat is a common pet for many of the richest Menheb in the jungle. Kotus is an ancient land that still contains many mysteries deep in the subterranean areas. We have information on the Mountains of Gold. The old gold mines stretch for miles throughout the reach. There are tales of these high cliffs, once being the hiding place for some of the most dangerous dragons when the dragon gates were destroyed. Then we have Mountains of Wuthunk. The mountains have held a long history as one of the whereabouts of a void god tower. It is unknown where this legend came from, or if it has any truth to it. Yet now the mountains are home to a barbaric tribe of cannibalistic crow goblins. Then we have Mistgard, large city of Mage Realm. This city is ruled by the High Council of Magi. They sit at the huge opal round table. All of the Grand Magi are Archmage in status, and all of them represent the 12 districts at the council chambers. We also have Narcadia. It has become one of the most dangerous countries in the known world, even called by some the Black Empire. It is part of many prophecies that claim the Vataji that worship Val, and the rest of the devil worshippers will end up taking over the world. We have information on Necrophage Forest. These trees are still alive, which is interesting since most of Narcadia seems dead. The Necrophage Forest initially was given its name from all the undead that were hidden under the canopy to shield them from the burning rays of the twin suns. Then we have Nin To, the small free city. It is ruled by the pirate king, Mondolis of Thid. It is a trade city with a very fat population of pirates, merchants, thieves, and assassins. The dirty city is filled with crime, and yet for those who wish to hide, it is a paradise. Duels on the streets are daily. Then we have Nor, the large city of Valhagan. This mighty city rests on the side of a mountain and surrounds a powerful dwarven stronghold. The city of Nor flourishes in the trade of salt and valcrum from deep in the mountains of Valhagan. It is a very good supplier to all races as far as weaponry and armor. Then we have information on Oak's Rest, the large city of Zerra. This lies on the southern end of Serra. The city reached the large status within the last decade due to its economic growth and the flourishing of its trade system. The trade that comes in on the Serran Road is little compared to the ocean routes where ships are constantly bringing goods. Then we have the Octavius Keep, stronghold in Aticraulian Empire. This is a smaller castle that is also a prison. It is one of the worst prisons to go to, and it is the one that prisoners fear. There is a rumor that they torture the inmates no matter the crimes. They carry out scientific tests in pain and subjugation within. Then we have details on Ostium, a moderate city in the Aticraulian Empire. It has a giant golden eagle statue on the inner wall of the city. It is a compelling thing to behold as you are entering the city. There are 3 gates into the city and 2 wharfs that operate in 2 different bodies of water. Then we have Patan, the moderate city of Colonia. This city was once a large, thriving city of life. Now, due to Narcadian invasions, Patan is very close to becoming a war-torn battlefield. Families that still dwell here confide in hope that the war will be won. We have the Peaks of Solace. The dark elven word for shadows or darkness is Solace. Thus, the Peaks of Shadows get their name from the mountains that also appear black in nature, jagged rocks that are obviously composed of some strange type of rock. They have been there for millions of years, they say. So, if anyone ever did know the secrets of the mountains, they are long gone now. Then we have Potapek, the large city of Vazun Denal. This port city watches the coast of the Red Sea and is surrounded by the unforgiving desert Vazun Denal. Assassins' guilds are prominent here. Mercenaries are many here as well. Their main exports are salt and glass. Then we have Kwai. Out of the three Colonian lakes, also known as the Silver Lakes, Kwai is the second largest body of water. In the language of Eldarin and in the Kai Eldarin dialect, the word means sleeping or tranquil. Following that, we have extensive information on Colonia. The Kai Eldarin country of Colonia is ruled by the High Khalsar Tempoldra Jin. The High Khalsar does not reside within one of the cities, but within the hidden monastery of Whispers, which is claimed to be near the mountains within the midst of the jungle. In this land you will find Redwater, the moderate city of Narcadia. The city looms over the Dead Coast and gazes out over the Blood Straits. There is a road along the Dread Coast that leads from Bannerburn to Redwater. It is said that they were at war with the Stygian forces. Then we have information on the ruins of Antia. This was once a mighty Aticraulian city. A mark left by the might of their growing empire was stopped by one of the most powerful pirate fleets in history. Antia fell under the blade and the torch of the pirates. Then we have the ruins of Eve. This tortured city is a burial ground that was swallowed by the bog of the Taken. This place is filled with all manner of nightmares, both hellish in spirit and in material form. The undead roam much of the surrounding walls and inside the streets of the ancient city. Then we have the Sanguine Isles. The isles are covered in jungles and possess different cults and clans of mutants. They surround the harbor of the city Bannerburn, making it hard to sail into the area. These islands are very strange in appearance. There is plant life upon them, yet it is as if these plants are from another world. Then we have information on the Sea of Shadows. Between the Ocean of Amure and the Iron Ocean rests the Sea of Shadows. This sea has been known to play tricks on the captains for decades. Several captains have recently made claims that the use of a compass is useless in the westernmost areas of the sea. Then we have Serra. The country of Serra is a Terran land. Most of its inhabitants seem as though their flesh color is a brownish red hue. They wear strange markings, often upon their faces in white and blue swirls, lines or dots. It is a proud country known for its naval forces, mystic music, curved blades, and archery. Here we have the Serran Fields. The southern portion of these lands is grasslands for miles and miles. It is almost as dry as the desert and can very much be called so in some locations. Then we have the Shattered Hills. These lands are ruled by the Skog. There are many tribes, yet they all unite every year for the Great Hunt, and have tournaments and discuss the business of the year and the days of the future. We also have information on the Silver Lakes. They were named as such because the Aticraulians were given silver bars to let the Colonians have the land without war breaking out between the two countries back in the old days. Then we have Six Candle Tower, the small city of Mage Realm. The Magi are a very united mixture of people, many different races that have been able to come together and create amazing architecture, art, and share their knowledge of magic with one another. The Six Candle Tower is ruled by Grandmaster Archmage Dralthoric Iljorin. There are not many Grandmaster Archmages left in this world, or so it is claimed. Rumor is he is one of the most ancient Nephilim that is protected by powerful magic within the castle he dwells within. Then we have details on Solistia, small city of Colonia. This was otherwise named the City of Darkness in the Dark Elven dialect of Anath. It is a small city but very mysterious. They have held onto ancient traditions and old magic is still in use here and practiced freely. The dark arts are actually allowed to be practiced. Necromancy and such is able to be used but in a hushed manner. Then we have Squall's End, the large city of Brom. There are many different races in Squall's End. It is a safe haven away from the blasted winds of the Iron Desert. The city also represents the very end of a mighty river that runs rampant from the largest of the Silver Lakes. Then we have information on the Steppes of the Rat. These extensive grasslands are ruled by tribes of Tarkanis warriors, shamans, thieves, and assassins. There are many of their numbers. They also possess tunnel systems beneath the grasslands that can allow them to pop out of the deep grass, attack, and disappear within seconds. Then we have Stonegrow, the large city of Balhagan. The capital of Balhagan is actually a large subterranean city of dwarves that rests throughout the mountains. Many tall spires look out over the mountains, hills, scattered forests, and the valleys of Balhagan. This vast empire is the heart of all Mungru in the south. Then we have information on Raider's Pass, a passage that leads through Viden's Wall. It is a perfect place for raiders to attack caravans, wagons, or even just small groups moving through the area. It became so popular that the army of the Aticraulian Empire is sent to wipe out the communities of raiders every few years. Then we have Talon Hills. These hills are said to be the earth laying upon a massive sleeping dragon. The rolling hills appear like the many humps of the back, neck, and tail rising and falling. Next we have Tarhide, the large city of Zawan. The city of Tarhide is filled with a race known as the Gortog, a race of beastkin that appear much like a mix between humanoid and boar. The city was crafted using their ancient architectural design with many huts of stone, mud, and wood. Then we have Thieves' Road, the most heavily traveled road in Icobor. It is the Thieves' Road. It is the primary trade route by land for merchants of this southern country that reaches all four cities within the realm. Then we have Traitor's Den, the moderate city of Icobor. Nestled into the harbor of Broken Axe and guarded by the mountains of Icobor lies a mysterious city known as Traitor's Den. It was named after those who escaped the subjective punishment of the Empire. Next we have details on the tribes of the Colonian Shadowwalkers. There are 3 known tribes of the Colonian Shadowwalkers. These tribes are named the Hefestani, which are known as the Grave Dancers, the Nimbalish, also known as the Stone Blades, and the Thelmanest, that are called the Forest Ghosts. They are feared in the jungles for being a very savage people. Then we have Titus, moderate city in Aticraulian Empire. Titus is a moderate-sized city, and oddly enough, they create powerful naval ships that they have tried to hide in the past within the largest of the Silver Lakes. This is due to their use of the rivers to quickly reach the Iron Ocean. They also possess a powerful legion, and their society is greatly based on war. We also have information on Titus Vow, the greatest of the Silver Lakes, which is said to actually mean the Tears of Honor. These lakes have served the Aticraulian Empire and Colonia in trade and transport for many years. We also have information on Tau, the smallest of the Silver Lakes. It is a quiet place that has a few hamlets nestled around the shores. The place is out of reach of larger civilizations in Colonia, but it is known to be a good place for fishing. Then we have Twin Towns, the large city in the Aticraulian Empire. This city was once 2 small towns that grew into quite a large city. One lay on the shore of the Dark Strait, touching the Amur, while the other lay nestled against Imperial Bay. The twin towns eventually grew to meet one another, and there are still 2 keeps that loom high above the smaller buildings of each town. Then we have Valhagan, the mighty dwarven empire of the south. The Mungru thrive in these mountains due to the heavy deposits of Mertaculum, steel, Valkyrium, and many other precious stones and minerals. The dwarves have no fear of running out of these hefty veins. We have information on Viden's Wall, which is actually a mountain range that separates the desert lands of Brom from the Aticraulian Empire. Vaiden Carvax was a powerful giant Cyclops chieftain that warred with other tribes along the high peaks of the wall. The giant Cyclops people battled for territory over these mountains against ogres and frost giants and won the 22-year war for the territory during the Kin Wars. Then we have information on Vazun Denal. The desert lands of this sea of sand are ruled by Sultan Rahir out of the northern city of Sandihara. This desert is vast and ominous, yet it is filled with great beauty. We have details on Vita, the large city in the Aticraulian Empire. This ever-expanding city stands fast on the greatest of the silver lakes called Titus Val. This city named Vita, which is also called the City of Life, is covered in vines, green rooftops, all due to the plant life and the everlasting gardens. We have information on Vita vineyards, which are the rolling hills that lie on the outskirts of the jeweled City of Life. We also have information on Witch Haven Ruin. In the midst of Dead Man's Marsh, there is a castle that barely stands with broken towers and swamp flowing into the bowels of the dungeons. There have been groups that have gone in to explore the remnants of this castle and village once called Witch Haven. It still carries endless dangers though, for every year the undead are said to grow in numbers. Then we have Wutang Mountains. It is said that these mountains contain mines filled with gold, and they probably still contain gold, because the war for Wutang ended in a strange and unexpected twist. It ended with a demigod showing up and wiping out not only the enemy, but the remainder of the city of Wutang. Some say that the Crow Goblins took advantage of this situation and took complete control over the mines. Then we have information on Wutang Rune. This was a city for goblinoids, and they were actually quite wealthy. Yet the Aticraulians to the west heard about the wealth and they forced the campaign to expand into the Crow wilderness. It is believed that it was around this time when the true hatred between the Crow and the Aticraulians was bred. Next we have Xiaoyu Temple. This temple was created by the pharaohs of the Mentep in Kotus. The monks, as well as the priests that worship the gods of all paths, wanted to make this place where all paths lead, the temples of the Tao. There are several pyramids in the desert here and many large statues of gods. Next we have Yul, the large city of Narcadia. This is a dreaded place. It is ruled by the Stygian forces. It contains many dangerous districts, but thanks to Overlord Grael Zult, the city has been kept from tearing itself apart from within. Then we have information on Zawan. The Zawani are the inhabitants of these tropical islands, filled with exotic life and catastrophic death. The islands are covered in volcanic activity. Giant reptilian beasts and giant bird-like creatures inhabit the area. And so this was somewhat of a small tour of the places presented in this expansion of the Tortured South. There are many things that I didn't speak about. They're just too much information. Something that I really like is how many things are handled as legends and rumors, or giving you just bits of truth. So a player could read this expansion and things won't be spoiled in the campaign, unless the game master is handling a campaign of complete and total exploration where the player characters do not know anything about the different cities and zones and regions. Then perhaps it would be advisable for the player not to read most of the content in this expansion, but in a normal campaign where you know already about different cities, towns, villages, different forests, mountains, tombs, then a player can easily read this guide and he will feel as if he has read this gazetteer that was manufactured by the scholar that is featured in this expansion. Then we have information on the new species and races. First, we have the goblins. So they have the subspecies of Dun Goblin, Knocker and Mongrel. And each of these subspecies is quite different from the others. For example, the Dun Goblins are like the goblin leaders. The Knockers are goblin explorers and cave dwellers, and the Mongrel are goblin warriors with over-exaggerated teeth. So they have different characteristics, different roles to play in goblin society. You have some racial abilities such as Blood Scent that allows you to track different creatures. You also have Iron Gut that allows you to eat food that is fresh or raw or uncooked. You also have spider climb, blade teeth that I mentioned. Some of these are specific of certain subspecies. Now goblins in general, they are not very strong and not very charismatic, but they are dexterous and quite perceptive. They have long been looked down upon by pretty much any other species and race, but they are quite resourceful, quite cunning. Then we have the Kai Eldrin, which are the Dark Elves. These Dark Elves are not as evil or as sinister as you would see them in other fantasy settings. Magic is the defining principle of their societies. In general, they are not very strong and not very charismatic, but they are also quite dexterous and perceptive, similarly to the goblins. They have the subspecies of half Dark Elf, and they have some interesting racial abilities. Some of them are quite typical in fantasy, but some others are quite specific to the Demon Gate role-playing game. So we have things such as, for example, Dark Rest. The Dark Elves regenerate when sleeping in darkness. They also have abilities to conceal themselves with Night Skin and City Walk, but they also have Forest Walk, which allows them to be quite stealthy in forest, and they are also quite beautiful despite their lack of charisma. So they are beautiful, but not too magnetic or charming. Next, we have the Minotaurs, and I really like this species. However, the illustration for one of the Minotaurs, I don't really like it. The face looks somewhat weird, but the other Minotaur looks great. Now, the Minotaurs, also known as the Broman, they are honorable people. They have a very distinct style to their architecture and artistry that tells they take time and pride in their work, much like the dwarves. They are quite strong. They are also quite hardy of body in general, but they are not very dexterous and not very perceptive or intelligent. So they are best when fighting up close and personal, taking hits and dishing out damage. You have some racial abilities and characteristics that enhance these natural attributes, such as Leather Hide, that gives you a bonus in toughness, Beast Scent, that allows you to make good perception rolls when using the sense of smell. And as expected of Minotaurs, they are quite deadly when they charge at their enemies. Then we have information on the new classes. First, we have the Bowmaster. This is a specialist in ranged combat, using crossbows, shortbows, longbows, handbows, it matters not. It is said that this class or profession originated in the jungles of Kolinost in the Shadinar territory to the north. So you have abilities such as Seeker, Alter Ammo, Piercing Gaze, Bow Dance, Return Fire, Improve Weapon, Misfire, Archer's Edge. In general, I would say that this class feels like a ranged combat tank. And what I mean by that is that this character class can take on other ranged combatants that are less skilled, of course, in prolonged battles. You will win battles of attrition, but you are also able to finish those battles quickly using the right abilities. And extraordinarily so, you're even able to deflect the arrows of your enemies using your own arrows. So this class is able to deal death through ranged attacks, but you are also able to shield your allies using your own projectiles to knock off or knock about or deflect the projectiles of your enemies, be it axes or crossbow bolts, spears, anything. Then we have the Knight Errant. This is a soldier of the king, queen, or ruler of a certain land that has sworn their fealty and pledged their services to their master. You have abilities such as a chosen weapon, Oathmaker, Errant Toughness, Defensive Formation, Honor and Glory, Knight's Edge, Weapon Training. This is a very interesting type of tank. For the most part, you are quite defensive in your combat methods. You do have some abilities to manipulate the battlefield, like for example, helping your allies to regain hit points when they are very low in hit points. You can also use your knight influence to gain an edge or an advantage in courtly affairs. And because you're also extra tough and you have defensive formations, you really want to get this guy to the front line as fast as possible to protect the other party members, providing defensive bonuses, but your powers are also augmented or enhanced when you take an oath to complete a quest, and this class is also quite devastating when fighting from on top of a mount. Then we have the Scald Berserker. This is the type of class for someone who can't decide if he wants to play as a bard or as a barbarian. The Skull Berserker is quite famous for inspiring his comrades, but also being quite deadly in battle tactics. This is a character that can go into battle, but is mostly focused on boosting his companions and adjusting different bonuses and penalties according to the situation. So we have abilities such as Fury Song, Echoes, Blood Hymn, Rip and Tear, Dirge of Terror, Berserker's Lust, Ballad of Bravery. So you can inspire other characters so that they are able to accomplish things that would normally be outside of their range or expertise. And you can also inflict negative effects on your opponents. For example, using Rip and Tear, you can actually deal damage to the armor of your enemy. You can degrade the armor. So this is a class that is all about buffing your own party while inflicting negative effects on your enemies. Then we have information on the creatures of the Tortured South, with all of their abilities, weaknesses, vulnerabilities, their characteristics, how they react, their environments, everything that you would need. And as I said at the beginning, these are more on the savage and animalistic side. I'm not going to talk too much about them, just in case the Game Master wants to use them to surprise the characters. I would just mention some brief details that perhaps the player characters would hear about in rumors or legends or stories when they are adventuring throughout the world of Koth. So we have things such as the Avathor, which are carnivorous creatures. They wait in hiding and they use their barbed tentacles against their victims. We have the Vandergath. These are basically Yeti-like bipedal creatures, and they are found in the swamps or the forests of the south, and their agility is not to be underestimated. Then we have bloodbines. Some can be as small as a few vines with roots that look like red veins, and so they drain the blood of their victims. Then we have the Crow Orc Warrior. Crow Orcs are said to be savage beings that worship giant beast gods and eat the flesh of their enemies, as well as their own dead. We also have Goblin Shamans, which are pretty self-explanatory. Then we have the Gortog. These are Beastmen, a primitive race of Therians that usually have one shaman as a tribal leader. Their heads are pig-like, and they have tusks and thick manes. Then we have the Hraesvelg, or the Corpse Eaters. So these are basically giant vultures of legend. They have been known to fly away with cattle, horses, or even humanoids at times. You also have kobolds. They are quite rampant in the underworld. They are said to have their own villages and even cities within the deep, but there are also some that have dwellings on the surface world. Then we have the Mahamba. These are fierce reptilian monsters. Normally reach close to 30 feet in length. There are stories of them attacking canoes and splitting rafts in half with ease. Then we have mammoths, often called mastodons or woolly mammoths. They are large quadrupeds that carry massive tusks that they use only as protection, for they are usually quite docile unless provoked. Then we have the Noctul. Hundreds are born in the ocean in translucent sacks, yet normally only a few survive the predators of the sea. They are actually quite nightmarish in their appearance. They have barbed tentacles and a spear-like torso. Then we have the Raka. These are bipedal reptiles, and they are fast and deadly. They have teeth like daggers and claws for pinning and tearing meat. Then we have the Saurian. This is a reptilian species standing close to 7 feet in height and normally weighs around 400 to 500 pounds. They live near the kobolds, and they actually are pretty good at developing technology. They are actually building ships to raid the north. Then we have the Shadow Spiders. The bite of the Shadow Spider is just one of the reasons it is given this name. The venom deals damage and is blinding and disorienting, creating strange hallucinations. Then we have the Tarasque, a classic. This massive reptile is the king of the jungle. It is worshipped in the Crow Wilderness and those of the Zawani rainforest as a god. The beast god has teeth like swords made for tearing chunks of flesh, and it can swallow men whole. Then we have the Troglodytes. They are also called Trogs by many. These are black-eyed creatures that live in underwater sea caves. One subspecies, the tree trogs, dwell in forest caves near the lakes and swamps. Then we have tyrant bats. They get their name from their giant size. Their claws and teeth are large enough to sever a limb due to their speed and strength. Then we have the umberlacs. These are arthropods that possess 6 legs, a long neck that extends from the back that is armored by cheating plates. The strange squid-like tentacles crown a flat head that is adorned with many eyes. Then we have the upathic tree. These are poisonous trees that hold very dangerous sacs of sap that are held within beautiful flowers. There are also Viridian vipers. These are green-scaled serpents that are feared for their hallucinogenic poisons. And near the end of the book, you have a section detailing the special abilities and vulnerabilities of these creatures and monsters. So you have things such as aggression, allure, agony, blood drain, camouflage, chitin armor, fire weakness, fire vulnerability, fly, fury, pounce, psionic shield, shadow bite, sonic shock, trample, trap, venom, web. All sorts of things that you can use to create your own monsters. And at the very end of the book, we have a polite fiction. This is a fragment of the adventures that Marvel the Scribe has experienced in the world of Koth. Marvel the Scribe, as you may remember from the beginning of this review, is the non-player character that is supposedly recording everything that you have been reading so far. He's the one responsible giving you information about the world, the cultures, the dangers and sights. And here you have some notes of what he has experienced. And I'm going to keep this spoiler free, but let me tell you that this fiction will make you feel glad that you are a capable adventurer. Because Marvel the Scribe, well, he's not very skilled in the more dangerous side of life. He's not very good at combat and, let's say, being perceptive about the dangers. And he experiences a great danger and humiliation in this story. So, in a way, you could use this short fiction as a sort of adventure seed. Maybe Marvel the Scribe actually hires the player characters to get his revenge or investigate into matters further, because here you have a story of corruption, of crime, of hidden agendas, and perhaps even darker secrets. So this story serves as a sort of platform or seed for an adventure of your own. So what do I think of the Tortured South, an expansion for Demon Gate? Well, there is so much to love about this expansion. First of all, it manages to fulfill its purpose. It expands Demon Gate in many ways. You have a complete expanded atlas and information on different adventure sites and different hubs that the adventurers can use to rest and recover, but you shouldn't lower your guard. There are still many dangers in the more civilized areas. I think there is a nice contrast between savagery and civilization in this Tortured South expansion, and both areas of adventure possibilities hold many dangers and opportunities. I also like the variety of the environments and the zones and regions. Sometimes you could be in a sort of coastal area, some other places are thick jungles, some other places are mountain ranges, so you can have all sorts of adventures. You will be able to use this expansion through many Demon Gate campaigns, for the entirety of your Demon Gate career probably, and I like it how they keep things as a sort of rumors or myths and legends, because that way the game master can play around with what you would perceive as truth in the setting. Maybe the adventurers hear about these ruins or catacombs or forgotten city or whatever that supposedly has this horrible beast or hunting or treasures or dangers, but those could be only rumors and just that. It is up to the game master to determine if that is true or not. So this is a great way for the player, for example, to get familiar with the Demon Gate setting, reading this expansion, unless your game master strictly tells you that he is going to keep things completely under wraps or in the shadows, not revealing almost anything about the campaign setting. There will be no danger at all for the player to read this different information of the Atlas, the cities, the empires, and there will still be many surprises. The player will never know if what he is reading is the actual truth. He doesn't know how the game master is going to handle the different plot lines or storylines, potential outcomes. When it comes to the species and races, they are excellent. I like how they still, although they have some similarities to other fantasy races and species in other fantasy role-playing games, you still feel that this creatures are exclusive to the Demon Gate setting. That is, the goblins, they have this system of castes of different goblins specialized in leadership. Some others are specialized in spelunking and exploring, others are warriors. In case of the Minotaurs, there weren't any radical changes there, but that's great because Minotaurs are quite awesome in my opinion. They are quite strong, they have this sort of sense of honor to them most of the time. In other cases they are handled only as villains, but here you can have a Minotaur hero if you want to. In the case of the Dark Elves, they are not portrayed as sinister or as twisted as presented in other fantasy settings. You could play them like that, but here they feel like more of a standard type of species or race that you can use as adventurers. I also like it how magic plays a lot into their society, to the point that they still practice dark magic, but they do so with great responsibility. They even have like this knighthood or knightly order of warrior mages, so they're handled significantly different when compared to other dark elf representations. The classes also work well when it comes to finding their place with the other classes in the core rulebook. For example, the Bowmaster, you have this sort of ranged tank sort of character that you can take on several ranged opponents, even protecting your allies using your own projectiles, deflecting the projectiles of your enemies with them. When it comes to a Knight Errant, this is another tactical tank sort of character, but for up close and personal situations, in contrast with the Bowmaster. And because of his knightly characteristics when compared to other classes, such as taking oaths and riding horses with great expertise, he still feels like quite different from the more frontliner or tanky classes in the core rulebook. And when it comes to Scout Berserker, I think this is a great hybrid sort of class for one who cannot decide if he wants to play as the Barbarian or the Bard. You can play as a decent combat character with abilities to buff your allies and debuff your enemies, or apply different effects that are beneficial to you and that hinder the enemy forces. And all of the monsters and creatures, they fit right into the Tortured South sort of theme or flavor. They are quite savage. They represent those dangers that you could find when exploring forbidden places, ruins, jungles, anything that you can imagine. So I highly recommend that you get the Tortured South. I also think that the fiction at the end serves as inspiration for an adventure, or depending on how you want to develop things, perhaps an entire campaign. So I really recommend that you get the Tortured South. I consider this a must-have of an expansion. And if you decide to get this as a player, I think you should avoid reading the stats and special abilities of the monsters unless your game master allows you to get that information. Otherwise, it's going to be a huge spoiler. Maybe your character has talked with someone who is experienced with these creatures and you already know about the special abilities and vulnerabilities, but I think that the greatest fun of these creatures is experiencing their powers for the first time and getting into that sort of sense of panic that you do not know how to defeat them, or what works on them, what they can do to your character. So if you get this expansion as a player, just be mindful of avoiding reading those stats and special powers, as I said, unless it is allowed. And it's also important to talk with your game master before the beginning of the adventure or the campaign, because maybe, as I said, he wants to keep many secrets from the campaign world, but if he allows it, this Tortured South expansion is going to be great for the player character to have previous knowledge, just a bit of information of each of the adventure sites, and you could roleplay a bit more effectively. It actually feels like your character knows about the world he is living in. Maybe you say something like, oh, I know that place, in those jungles it is said that this beast inhabits that area and its people, or whatever. Or, oh, I know about that city, it is said that the illustrious king or overlord or warlord is ruling there, maybe you can talk to him and stuff like that. So definitely I recommend the Tortured South. A definite must-have for the game master, and I would still recommend it for a player character, especially if you want to create a goblin, minotaur or dark elf type of character, or if you are interested in any of the character classes. Well, thanks for watching my review. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know. See you later.